In a galaxy where humans are laughed at and seen as weak, one man, Reno Talvik, has discovered a power that could change everything. After being humiliated by a group of alien warriors, Reno stumbles upon an ancient, forgotten weapon hidden beneath a long-abandoned world. But this is no ordinary relic. It's a living, breathing suit of armor, capable of transforming him into something more than human. Now, with the alien empire hunting him down, Reno must use this newfound power to prove that humanity is no longer the underdog. Will he survive the awakening of this ancient force? Or will the galaxy's most feared empire crush him before he can even fight back? Humanity's fate is in his hands. If you're new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Reno Talvik stood in the center of the crowded marketplace, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. His heart pounded in his chest as the mocking voices of the aliens filled the air around him. They were everywhere, their sharp laughter echoing through the dirty, noisy space. It was the kind of laughter that made your skin crawl, full of derision, as if humans were no more than a joke to them, and in this galaxy, it felt like they were right. The marketplace of Torrin's Rest was nothing like the cities Reno had once known back on Earth. It was a vast, chaotic place, located on the edge of the galaxy. This was where smugglers, traders, and scavengers gathered to buy and sell their wares, stolen goods, forgotten tech, anything that might still be of value. The air smelled of burning fuel, sweat, and strange spices from a dozen different worlds, all mixing together in a nauseating haze. Nothing about this place felt right. Yet here he was, trying to make a living. Reno had spent weeks searching the barren lands outside the city. He had dug through ruins left behind by forgotten wars, pulling out scraps of metal, broken machines, and small tech pieces that might still have some value. But none of it seemed to matter. The aliens laughed at him when he tried to sell his finds. They mocked him, not just for the poor condition of his tech, but for being human, for being an outsider in their world. To them, humans were nothing more than weak, insignificant creatures. A group of Trin aliens stepped forward, their green, scaly skin glistening under the harsh lights of the market. They towered over him, their broad, muscular bodies a stark reminder of how inferior he felt. Their leader, General Yaroth, was the biggest of them all. His black armor gleamed, decorated with golden symbols of victories in battle. The others, his soldiers, stood in a half-circle, grinning as they watched the scene unfold. Yaroth picked up one of Reno's tech scraps, a rusted, broken circuit board. He turned it over in his claws, inspecting it with contempt. Then, without a second thought, he tossed it aside, his deep voice rumbling like thunder. "This is human technology?" he sneered. "No wonder your kind is weak." The other Trin roared with laughter, the sound filling the air. Reno's jaw tightened, his body shaking with rage. He wanted to punch Yaroth in the face, to show them that humans were capable of more than they thought. But he knew it would be a mistake. The Trin were stronger, faster, and better armed. He was nothing compared to them. Besides, he was an outsider here, in a place where no one would help him. He would be alone in his fight. "I just need credits," Reno said, trying to keep his voice steady. His throat felt dry, but he refused to let them see how much their laughter affected him. "The parts still have value," Yaroth grinned, revealing sharp, jagged teeth. "Value? Your kind has nothing of value," he said, stepping closer until he loomed over Reno, his massive frame casting a shadow across him. "No power, no weapons, no strength. You're nothing but scavengers, crawling through the dirt, picking up trash while real warriors like us conquer the stars." Another wave of laughter erupted around them. Reno felt the sting of their words, but he kept his head down, his eyes focused on the ground. He had heard this all before. Humans were the newcomers in the galaxy, the underdogs. The other species saw them as nothing more than pests, useful only for small jobs but never a real threat. Reno's gloved fingers twitched, and his gaze fell on his bag of scraps. He slung it over his shoulder and turned to leave. But as he did, Yaroth's mocking voice followed him. "Run back to your little hole, human," the Trin leader called after him. "Stick to digging in the dirt, that's all you're good for." Reno didn't stop. He walked past the stalls, past the other traders who were staring at him with smirks on their faces. He could feel their eyes on him, their laughter still ringing in his ears, but he refused to show any more weakness. Clenched fists, he kept his head high. One day, he thought, they wouldn't be laughing. One day he would make them see what humans were truly capable of. But he needed more than scraps to prove that. He needed something more, something powerful. And if the rumors were true, he knew exactly where to find it. Deep beneath the surface of Turin's Rest, hidden in ancient ruins, was a relic from a long-forgotten war. It was said to be a weapon so powerful that it could change everything. He didn't know who had hidden it or why, but he knew that if he could find it, he would have the strength to make the galaxy take humanity seriously. Reno quickened his pace, walking through the dark alleys of the city, the laughter of the aliens still echoing behind him. The noise faded as he disappeared into the shadows, his heart beating faster with each step. The journey ahead would be dangerous, and he knew there was a chance he might not survive. But this was his chance, his only chance to prove that humans could be more than just the galaxy's joke. He didn't know how much time he had, but he wasn't going to waste it. If the rumors were true, the weapon was waiting for someone who was willing to fight for it, and that someone was going to be him. As he disappeared into the darkness of Turin's Rest, the sounds of mockery still echoed in his mind. But soon, very soon, those laughs would turn into something else, something far worse. Reno Talvik's footsteps echoed through the narrow, dimly lit corridors beneath Turin's Rest. The marketplace above seemed like a distant memory now, a fading echo of mockery that fueled his determination. He had made the decision. No turning back. He would find the relic, the weapon hidden beneath the surface, the weapon that could prove humanity was more than just a joke. He followed the old man's instructions, the map from the data chip still glowing in his wrist pad. The tunnels twisted and turned, the walls covered with strange symbols and markings that seemed to tell a story of their own. The deeper he went, the more it felt like he was stepping into a world long forgotten. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath his boots became uneven, as if the very earth beneath him resented his presence. Reno had heard stories of the ancient civilizations that once inhabited this part of the galaxy, tales of forgotten wars and lost technologies all buried beneath the surface. But the more he traveled down into the tunnels, the more he realized how little he knew. It was as if this place had been intentionally hidden from the galaxy, sealed away by those who came before him. Perhaps they had feared what lay beneath. The further he walked, the darker the path became. His wrist light cast long, flickering shadows against the walls, illuminating the strange markings that covered every surface. Some symbols were unfamiliar, while others seemed eerily similar to the designs on the map. He could feel a strange pull, a magnetic attraction to the unknown, urging him forward. As he moved deeper into the heart of the ruin, the sounds of the marketplace were replaced by the quiet hum of ancient technology buried beneath the surface. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant sound of his boots crunching against the stone floor. His breath was slow and steady, but his pulse quickened with each step. He wasn't sure if it was fear or excitement, but the closer he got, the more alive he felt. This was what he had come for, the chance to change everything. And then he heard it, a low rumble that shook the ground beneath his feet. At first he thought it was just the old structure settling, but then it came again, louder this time. It wasn't just the building that was alive. It was something deeper, something that had been dormant for centuries. Reno hesitated, his hand reaching for the blaster at his side, but he didn't draw it. The sound faded and the silence returned, more oppressive than before. Reno pressed on, ignoring the growing unease that crawled up his spine. He could feel his heart racing in his chest, but he refused to stop. This was his chance. He couldn't turn back now. The path ahead twisted, narrowing into a narrow passageway. The walls here were different, slick with moisture, and covered in a strange pulsating blue glow. It was as if the very walls were alive, breathing in the darkness, waiting for him to make the next move. His wrist light flickered as he passed, casting strange shadows that seemed to follow him. He reached out and touched the walls, feeling the hum of energy beneath his fingertips. There was no mistaking it now. This place was not just a ruin. It was a tomb, a burial site for something powerful. The deeper he went, the more he realized that the weapon he sought wasn't just some forgotten relic. It was something alive, something that had been waiting for a long time. As Reno rounded a corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. In front of him stood a massive stone door, its surface covered in glowing symbols that pulsed with a faint light. The door was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its size was immense, and the carvings on its surface were both beautiful and terrifying, depicting scenes of battles fought long ago, of warriors clashing with alien beasts. Reno's breath caught in his throat. This was it. The weapon was behind this door. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach. He stepped forward, reaching out to touch the door, but as his fingers brushed the surface, a deep, mechanical sound filled the air. The door rumbled, and the ground beneath him shook once more. He stepped back instinctively, his heart pounding in his chest. The door began to move, slowly at first, as if it were waking up after centuries of slumber. The symbols on its surface began to shift, rearranging themselves in patterns that were too complex to understand. The air around him grew colder, and the faint blue glow from the walls brightened, bathing the entire chamber in an eerie light. Reno didn't know what to expect on the other side, but he knew that there was no turning back now. The door slid open with a heavy groan, revealing the chamber beyond. It was vast, larger than anything he had ever seen. The floor was covered in a layer of dust, and strange machines lay scattered around the room, their forms broken and rusted, as if they had been abandoned long ago. At the center of the chamber, something caught his eye. A massive pedestal stood in the center of the room, and atop it, there was something that glowed with a faint, pulsating light. Reno's heart skipped. A beat. It was the suit, just as the old man had described, the ancient weapon that could change everything. He stepped forward, his legs feeling heavy as if the weight of what he was about to do was finally sinking in. This wasn't just a suit. It was a relic of a time long past, a weapon of unimaginable power, and it was waiting for him. Reno reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he placed it on the pedestal. A shock of energy surged through him, and the room seemed to come alive, the machines humming as if they were awakening from a long slumber. The symbols on the walls flickered, and for a brief moment, Reno saw something, a vision of ancient warriors clad in the same armor, standing tall and powerful as they fought against a horde of alien invaders. The vision vanished as quickly as it came, and Reno was left standing in the center of the chamber, staring at the suit before him. He knew that this was it. The path he had chosen had led him here to this moment. He was no longer just a scavenger. He was about to become something more. But as he reached for the suit, the ground trembled once again. This time it was different. It was a warning. Someone else was coming. Reno Talvik's breath caught in his throat as he stepped closer to the suit. It pulsed with energy, glowing faintly in the dim light of the ancient chamber. The pedestal before him hummed, almost as if it were alive, reacting to his presence. The air around him grew thicker, charged with an electricity that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. This was it. This was the power he had come for. The relic, the weapon that could change everything. His fingers trembled slightly as he reached for the suit, hesitant yet drawn to it by something deeper than mere curiosity. As his hand made contact, the room seemed to shift. The machines surrounding him buzzed to life, their ancient parts creaking and groaning as if awakening from a centuries-long slumber. The floor beneath his feet trembled, and a deep, resonating hum filled the air. Then it happened. A shock of energy coursed through him, so intense it felt as though his very cells were vibrating. Pain shot through his body, a sharp, burning sensation that threatened to overwhelm him. But in the midst of the pain, he felt something else. A surge of power, a flood of knowledge and sensations that filled his mind. Images flashed before his eyes, visions of ancient battles, warriors locked in fierce combat and strange forgotten technologies. It was as if the very essence of the armor was being transferred to him, as though the suit itself had come alive, bonding with his body. Reno staggered back, his hands clutching at his chest as the energy swirled inside him. He could feel it. The suit's presence, a living, breathing entity inside his mind. It was strange, foreign, but powerful. The pain subsided, replaced by a deep sense of connection, a bond that was both alien and familiar at the same time. His vision blurred for a moment and then it cleared. He could see everything more clearly now. His surroundings, the symbols on the walls, the ancient machinery around him. But it wasn't just the physical world he could see. His senses had expanded. He could feel the vibrations in the air, the slightest movements of dust particles, the subtle shifts in the room's temperature. Everything was sharp, every detail amplified, as if his very perception of the world had been heightened to an unimaginable degree. The suit was more than just a weapon. It was a connection to something far greater, something beyond the simple confines of human technology. It was a legacy, a relic of a forgotten time, and it had chosen him. As Reno stood there trying to steady his breath, he realized that something was changing inside him. The pain had given way to a rush of energy, a flow of power that coursed through his veins. He could feel his body strengthening, his muscles becoming more defined, his reflexes sharper. It was as if the suit was fusing with him, not just enhancing his physical abilities but merging with his very essence. He wasn't just wearing the suit anymore. He had become one with it. The chamber around him seemed to come alive. The walls vibrated with a low hum, and the floor beneath his feet seemed to pulse with energy. The air felt thick, charged with the power of the suit. It wasn't just the room that had changed, it was him. He could feel the knowledge of the armor flooding his mind, its ancient wisdom guiding his thoughts, teaching him how to wield the power within. He raised his hand, and to his surprise the suit responded. His fingers curled into a fist and the air around him seemed to tremble. The energy within the suit swirled, gathering around him, ready to be unleashed. It was a feeling unlike anything he had ever known, a sense of control, of power at his fingertips. With a thought, the suit's energy began to shift, responding to his will. He could feel it, deep within him, a connection, an understanding of how to use this incredible force. Reno took a step forward, his movements smooth and fluid, faster than he ever could have moved before. His body felt lighter, stronger. He could feel the suit amplifying every step, every movement, as if it was synchronizing with his very thoughts. He wasn't just controlling the suit. It was controlling him, guiding him, teaching him. The power was intoxicating, but it wasn't just physical strength. It was a power of the mind, a connection to something beyond human comprehension. He clenched his fist again, and the energy within the suit flared, glowing bright blue, before settling back into its eerie pulse. The chamber around him was silent, the only sound his own breathing, but inside his mind raced. He could feel the remnants of the battles fought by those who had worn the suit before him, the warriors whose strength and rage had once shaken the galaxy. Their power was now his. Their mission was now his. As he took another step, a sudden sharp noise interrupted his thoughts. The ground beneath him trembled again, this time more violently. Reno's eyes widened as a warning flashed across his vision. Hostile forces inbound. His heart skipped a beat. It was happening. Someone had detected his presence, someone who knew what the suit was capable of. He wasn't alone anymore. The suit had made its presence known, and now, the galaxy's powers were coming for him. Reno's grip on the suit tightened as his mind focused, sharpening. He wasn't ready. He had no idea how to use this power fully, how to fight with it. But the suit was ready. It was more than ready. It was alive, and it was waiting for him to lead it. The warning continued to flash in his vision, the words, repeating engagement imminent. His instincts kicked in, and without thinking he moved. The suit's power surged through him, amplifying his every movement, guiding him as though it had been with him his entire life. The chamber's walls seemed to close in around him, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. This was only the beginning, and he was ready. As the distant sounds of enemy forces grew louder, Reno's pulse quickened. The time had come. The suit had awakened, and now it was time for him to awaken as well. Reno Talvik stood in the heart of the forgotten chamber. his body now fully bonded with the ancient suit. The power coursing through him was undeniable, a force so immense it made him feel as though he could conquer the very stars. His muscles were stronger, faster, and more precise than he had ever imagined. The energy from the suit seemed to be alive, intertwined with his own senses, guiding him, urging him to move forward. But even with all the newfound strength, Reno felt the weight of what had just transpired. The suit was not just a tool. It was an entity, alive with the memories of ancient warriors who had once wielded it. Their knowledge, their battles, their triumphs, all of it surged through him. He wasn't just a human anymore. He was something more, something ancient, something destined for a greater purpose. A loud rumble shook the chamber, and Reno's mind snapped back into focus. The energy warning was still flashing in his vision. Hostile forces inbound. He could feel them coming. Whoever had sensed the awakening of the suit, they were here. They wouldn't give up easily. The ground trembled beneath him as he turned toward the entrance to the chamber. He was ready, but the reality of what was about to happen hit him like a cold wave. The universe had just been given a glimpse of what humanity was capable of. This suit, this ancient power, was no longer hidden. It was his, humanity's, and it was about to change everything. Reno stepped forward, his movements smooth and fluid. His heart was steady, no longer racing with uncertainty. He had something to prove, not just to the aliens who had laughed at him, but to every species in the galaxy that had underestimated humanity. His species had always been the underdog, the ones laughed at, mocked, and left behind. But no more. The time for humans to hide in the shadows was over. As he made his way toward the exit of the chamber, he felt the power of the suit surging inside him, amplifying his every move. It wasn't just strength. It was knowledge, precision, and instinct, all working in perfect harmony. The suit wasn't merely enhancing his physical abilities. It was transforming his mind, allowing him to think, react, and fight like the ancient warriors who had once worn it. He was no longer just a scavenger, no longer just a human. He was a force to be reckoned with. As he stepped out into the cold, dark tunnels beneath the surface of Torrens Rest, the air seemed to shift around him. The alien forces were closing in. He could feel their presence, could hear their heavy footsteps echoing through the tunnels. They were getting closer, their weapons ready. Their eyes trained on him. Reno's mind raced, but his body moved with purpose. The suit's interface flashed in his vision, showing him everything he needed to know. The enemy's positions, their movements, their weaknesses, everything he had ever needed to know was right there at his fingertips. The battle was already in his mind before it even began. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed through the tunnel. "You're brave, human, but this is where your journey ends." Reno didn't flinch. He knew who it was. General Karlak, the leader of the alien forces, stood at the entrance of the chamber, his massive frame blocking the way. His armor was heavy, decorated with symbols of his victories over countless species. He had been the one to lead the charge against humanity, the one who had mocked them for their weakness. But today, everything had changed. "I've seen your kind crawl through the dirt," Karlak sneered, his voice booming through the narrow tunnel. "You think you can stand against me? Against my empire? You are nothing. Weak. Insignificant." Reno's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. He could hear the other soldiers behind Karlak, their footsteps heavy and deliberate. The fear of facing this overwhelming force might have shaken him once, but not anymore. The suit had given him the strength, the confidence, and the will to fight back. Reno raised his hand, and the suit responded instantly. A glowing energy blade extended from his arm, crackling with raw power. The light from the blade illuminated the dark tunnel, casting sharp shadows on the walls. "You're wrong," Reno said, his voice calm but full of determination. "I'm not weak. I'm not insignificant. And neither is humanity." With that, he lunged forward, his movements faster than he ever could have imagined. The suit amplified his strength, his speed, and his reflexes to such a degree that he seemed to blur in the air. Karlak swung his massive weapon at him, but Reno dodged with ease, his body moving instinctively. The energy blade flashed in the air, cutting through the alien's weapon like it was paper. The other soldiers hesitated, shocked by the sudden display of power. Reno didn't wait for them to recover. With a swift, calculated move, he struck, taking down one of the soldiers. With a single blow, the others backed away, their fear growing as they realized that their opponent was no ordinary human. He was something more, something they had never expected. Reno turned back to Karlak, who was struggling to maintain his composure. The general's face twisted with anger, his confidence shaken. "You're just a human," he growled, his voice filled with disbelief. "This armor, it's not supposed to fit you, it's not supposed to work for you." Reno stood tall, his energy blade humming with power. Maybe it was never meant for anyone else. The battle between them was intense, but Reno fought with a precision and speed that Karlak couldn't match. Every move he made was calculated, his instincts honed by the power of the suit. The alien general was fast, but he was not fast enough. With one final strike, Reno drove his blade through Karlak's armor, piercing it with ease. The general collapsed to the ground, defeated. The remaining soldiers scattered, fleeing in terror as Reno stood over the fallen general. The suit hummed around him, its power still surging through his body. This was just the beginning. The rebirth of humanity was only starting, and there was no turning back. Reno's voice rang out across the battlefield, broadcasting to the galaxy. Humans will no longer be the joke of the galaxy. We will stand. We will fight. And we will win. The words echoed through the universe, sending a shockwave of fear and respect across the stars. The age of humanity had begun,